Excellent. So let's get started. Could I get you to introduce yourself and what you get up to at your company?
Sure. I'm Genie Joseph, and I'm the executive director of the Human Animal Connection. And we're a nonprofit organization in the US, and we do lots of good things with animals and people. So we'll bring therapy animals to people who are having stress or having a rough day. Like, well, one of the things we do is we go and visit the 911 operators. I don't know if you have 911 in your country, but
Yeah,
this
of
is the
course.
police, fire, and ambulance. So these are the people who are talking to people at the worst moments in their lives. The worst
Yeah.
things are going on, and they're getting these calls all day long. It's quite an experience. And one day I brought Harry in, one of my therapy dogs, and the supervisor got off a phone call and he looked at Harry and he said, "Thank God Harry was here today because I just had a call that really got under my skin. I try not to let them get under my skin, but this one did. And it wasn't for Harry, I don't know what I would do." And so, it's just very sweet that
Mm,
people who you can bring some joy, just a moment, just a little cuddle, a little sweetness that can just take away the stress and bring a smile to people's faces and let them go back to what they have to do. So we do that, and we have a program called Canines Teach Compassion. And
mm.
this is our high school program. And we bring the therapy dogs in to work with high school students. And as you know, high school students are under a lot of stress. And it's really beautiful to see them there's something, they don't want to talk about their emotions necessarily. The last thing they want to do is do therapy, right?
Yeah.
So, the dogs come in and the dogs connect with them in a way that's beyond words. It
Oh,
really
wow.
yeah, it touches their hearts and it gets them out of that kind of teenage angst, that sort of, I don't fit in. How am I going to fit in? What do and one of the things we'll do, we'll line up 5 different dogs in our program. We'll have a big, Harry's this big Great Pyrenees mix, and my other dog, Sophia's this little 25-pound Chihuahua mix. And, all these different dogs, black dogs, all different colors, line them all up. And we say to the kids, what is different about them? And immediately they can see all the differences. And then we'll say, well, what's the same?
Mm,
And it makes the point that that's how we are too. On the outside, you can see all these differences, but on the inside, there's a fundamental sameness of humanity. And that helps people to reconnect with their hearts. And we have a saying that you can't be compassionate to others until you're compassionate with yourself, meaning how
mm.
you talk to yourself, how you treat yourself. And so we are really interested in helping kids treat themselves better, be nicer to themselves because there's so much, difficulty outside, fitting in all this, the world.
Yeah.
And it just helps if you're not your own worst enemy.
No, I
know?
definitely agree. That's amazing. So how did you get started into all of this? Like, was it a specific idea? You've always been an animal lover?
Well, no, actually. I mean, it's not that I didn't always love animals, but I was in the movie business for 25 years and I had a type A personality life, not that I do now, but so I had no room. There was no room for love. So
Oh,
I just did, it wasn't something. I had a cat towards the end, but which I loved. He was amazing. But I began doing this program for service members, for soldiers, for all branches of the military, using improv comedy and laughter and expressive arts. And about 2 years into that program, it was very effective. But about 2 years into that program, I started bringing in the therapy animals, the dogs, the horses, miniature horses, and I saw what the dogs could do.
mm.
And I was like, oh my God, why am I working so hard? It's just like the dogs can reach people in ways that, would take months for me. And I had this one rescue dog. His name was Oscar, and he had been himself a prisoner of war. He had been, I won't tell you all the horror, but it was horrible. And he had escaped with a very, very expensive GPS collar. This is, many years ago. So it was like $1,000 collar. And they didn't even claim him because they didn't want people to know what they were doing. But anyway, he had missing teeth, scars all over his body. He had this really sad look, but he was an extraordinary therapy dog. And from day one, he could I would work with a group of soldiers in the hospitals, hospitalized with PTSD. He would go and he would say hello to each one. He would know someone that was afraid, he would skip them and he would go to the next one. But then he would just what we call do an alert, which is he would sit in front of the person who most needed help in that moment. So he would just sit there and look at them with these big brown eyes until the person just melted. you know,
Wow.
and he was always right. I mean, like, because people would hide their, especially this in the early days, in the war, and people would hide their emotions because no, they didn't want people to know they were suicidal or having those thoughts or feelings. And so Oscar always knew. And
Mm.
I really began to trust his instincts. He was impeccable. Humans could lie with their words, but you can't lie to a dog because they
No.
feel energy, they feel it. And he would do that with kids too. So that just said, you know what? This is it. This
Mm.
is what I want to do. And so now here we are at the Human Animal Connection. And we have worked with over 4,000 service members. And now we do some visits at the VA, the Veterans Hospital here. And yeah, it's good. It's a good thing.
I love that. Yeah, I know pets just always just kind of know when you're not feeling okay. And like, whether
Yeah.
that you see a therapy dog once a week or you have your own pet, they just have that sense. It's amazing. And they're like, you could just spill all your secrets and, you can have a good like therapy session with them, just chatting at them. And obviously they're just there cuddling you. And, even if they can't, give, constructive feedback to you, at least it's really nice that you get to have that connection. And it's amazing that obviously you're utilizing how amazing those animals are to help others, especially in their most dire moments.
Absolutely, because connection and love goes a long way towards healing. It's not to say that we don't also need to sometimes talk and have those experiences, but sometimes those are not what we need. Sometimes we just need to feel our own heart beating, and when you're in the presence of an animal and you just, they're just being sweet and snuggly to you, you just feel sweet and snuggly back, and pretty soon you feel your own humanity, your own nature. You start to feel reconnected with yourself and with the dog. So it's not just connecting with the dog, it's connecting with your own goodness. When we say, good doggy, you're a good doggy. Oh, my doggies are looking at me now. I'm saying that. When we say that, it's good for them, but it's also good for us because it brings us into the feeling, the experience of goodness. And goodness, like every emotion, is contagious. All emotions are contagious, the good ones and the bad ones. So we definitely want to work with really that circle of energy back and forth from the animal to the person. And not all animals have the destiny of being therapy animals. It's maybe about 20%, if I'm going to, it's not a scientific number, but just observationally, I see about 20% in the shelter, about 20% of the dogs are really, really, that's their destiny. And when it's their destiny, they love it. They are so good at reading human emotions and human energy and human moods. You can't teach that. You can teach them other skills, but they either feel emotions or they don't. And some dogs are just happy to be pets and play fetch and be just a doggy, and nothing wrong with that. That's 80% of dogs are probably very happy just doing that. But in our program, one of the things that's really important to us is that we want to make sure that the experience is as good for the animal as it is for the human. So we don't use animals as tools of healing. We work with animals as partners in healing. So
Mm.
that's maybe one of the things that makes our program unique, is that in the Human Animal Connection, I've written a book about it, and I talk about the 33 principles that underlie all of this and these healing techniques and working with animals with trauma. And one of our principles, I can't remember which one it is, I think it's 17, is that animals have opinions. And just having that perspective makes you aware. Oh, is the dog tired now? Has he had enough? Has that person just like, taken on all that energy, that person? Maybe it's time to go home now, after 45 minutes. And, they can't work all day if they're, working with people with stress, because they do take on the energy. And as humans, as the handler, we call them the handlers, the person who works with the dog team, they have to be very observant, because if a dog goes past that point, either they're going to get debilitated or they're going to be crabby or not want to engage. So because they're very truthful about their emotions, but we have to be observant, we have to watch.
Of course, yeah, and obviously they can't just say I've had enough. Give me a break.
Right.
I need a day with a ball, and I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Exactly. Well, they do say it. They just don't say it in words. They say it in behavior, but that
Mm.
behavior may be so subtle that if you're not paying attention, it's very easy to miss. You know, it could be
Definitely.
simply you bring a dog up to the person, dog turns their head away, and it's like, oh, he hasn't done that all day. You know, he's met 10 other people. That's the first time he's turned away. So either he's not feeling like engaging with that person's energy, or maybe he's just had enough for the day. And so that's our responsibility, is to be alert to what the dog is showing us. You know, obviously they're not going to say it in words, like you said, but they're going to show it in their behavior.
Definitely. Brilliant. I would love to know actually now about your new book that you had mentioned to me
Ah, yeah.
previously,
Yeah.
about the wholesome canine cuisine. What's that all about?
Yeah, so I've just written a new book, which you can get on Amazon. It's called The
Brilliant.
Wholesome Canine Cuisine, and it's all about making homemade food for your dog. And the great thing about my program is that I'm not like one of these fanatics, like you have to do, 100% homemade. Even if you do 25% homemade or 50%
Mm,
homemade, it's whatever you can manage, because we all have busy lives. And obviously commercial dog food is very convenient, but it's not healthy.
mm.
And Dr. Marty Goldstein, a veterinarian in the US, he says when he was in veterinary school in the 1970s, he saw 1 in 10 dogs would get cancer, and it was only senior dogs. And today, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in the US, now it's 1 in 2 dogs will get cancer, and at any age. And one of the distinct differences is that in the old days, dogs used to eat human food. Like it used to be dogs got the food, scraps from the table or whatever, or the whatever was left over. So they were eating, essentially nutritious food that still had its nutrient values. And today, they're getting these processed food and kibble, for example, the dry food. Do you call it kibble in the UK? I don't know what you call it.
I think normally it's either like food or biscuits we tend to call
Dry food or biscuits.
it.
Yeah. Well, in order to make that, it has to be heated to 400 degrees in order to make that food. And when you
Mm,
heat anything to 400 degrees, it is dead. It is nutritionally dead. Nothing survives 400 degrees. And the reason that they have to heat it to such high temperatures is because of all the pathogens from the poor quality of the food that's being used in the pet food industry, because it's not regulated. The government does not regulate what goes into pet food. So pet food manufacturers have a lot of liberty about what they put in, and they put in things that are not human grade, things that we would not consider eating. And so that's, of course, why it has to be heated so high. And in fact, I don't know how it is in the UK, but in the US, they have found a lot of the medications used in euthanasia showing up in the dog food, because dogs that have been euthanized end up as dog food.
oh,
So it's a
crikey.
yeah, it's really awful. The more you learn about it, the worse it gets. So, just by if you're a vegetarian, it's a little harder. But if you're not a vegetarian and you're boiling up some chicken, so give the dog some chicken. Give the dog some
Mm,
beef. Give the dogs a little bit of pork, not too much because it's a little fatty. But you want to vary the proteins. You want to add a little bit of vegetables, but the vegetables need to be cooked a little bit or pureed, because they can't break down the vegetables in the raw form. So you don't want to give raw vegetables, but a little bit of vegetables and a little bit of healthy grains. Like there's a kind of a trend in the US where they say grain-free pet food, which is just a pure marketing hoax. There's no evidence that that is a good for dogs. And in fact, we have a lot of cardiomyopathy in dogs that is perhaps being linked to the lack of healthy grains. So when I say grains,
mm,
I'm talking about maybe 10% of the meal, but some oatmeal or some quinoa or some healthy grains, some healthy fruits, blueberries. You can throw some blueberries in. So whatever you're eating, like the dogs, my 3 dogs, they get their regular doggy breakfast, but then I make scrambled eggs for myself, so they get some.
mm.
So they get a little scrambled eggs with a little bit of cheese and whatever I have. If I have some yams, I'll put a little in. So you can improvise once you learn the basic elements of canine cuisine. Once you learn the
Mm.
basic elements, what vitamins they need, what nutrients they need. And I do use some supplements, so I add to it. And again, I'm not 100%. Some days are 100%, some days are 50%. It doesn't go below about 50, but I, add to some of the much higher qualities. Like there's one brand in the US that's 100% food grade. So it's a little obviously more expensive than what you're
Mm.
going to find in, the big stores, but they'll have some of that and some of the homemade. And it's amazing. I mean, and the reason why I got started with this is my dog Sophia, who's now 10, she had cancer twice.
Oh,
And
crikey.
that's what made me start to think I got to do something. So that's what got me on the journey. And she's doing very well now. She's just a, she's bouncing around and been a happy little girl.
Well, that's good. I'm so glad that she's okay now. It's
Yeah.
amazing how you've drawn on your own experience as well. And obviously, you've not necessarily just kind of gone off kilter. You've actually, done the research, had a look, and, actually there's a bit of a trend going on. I know, especially in the UK, like things are a bit more regulated, but I have
Good.
seen
Good.
such a big difference from, producing or giving more of human food, but obviously the safe kind. You
Yeah.
can't just give any human food, just as a
You're
disclaimer.
right. Yeah.
Uh, and doing that instead of, just focusing purely on what you can buy in the pet store because it can just be so much it can just be so much fresher as well. Like fresh
Yeah.
food is got such a big difference, especially in animal diets. It's insane.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
something I think everyone should definitely consider.
Absolutely. And again, you can do it at a pace at a level that works with your own lifestyle. Like I cook for them twice a week usually. Put it in the refrigerator, I'll freeze some stuff, pull it out. So it's not like I have to cook every day, every meal,
Mm.
but it's once you sort of get your kind of routine down, it can become very convenient. And like I said, I was in the movie business. I didn't even know where the kitchen was, so it's helped me too to think about, okay, what are we going to eat tonight? Not what's the dog going to eat, but what are we going to eat tonight? Just, yeah.
It probably just reinforces with yourself as well. And it's like, actually, I'll try and make sure to have definitely some greens in this meal because I know
Right.
obviously I want to give some to my dog as well. So
Exactly.
you
A
can
little
kind
bit
of
of,
like, supporting each other through healthy eating. It's quite actually probably a good diet hack in a way.
right, right. Yeah. And we want to kind of eat the rainbow. So we want to have, a little bit of cooked carrots, a little bit of cooked broccoli, a little bit of cooked
Mm,
spinach. It is important, as I said, to cook the vegetables because they don't break them down. And some people say, well, wolves didn't eat vegetables. Well, when wolves were out there, they would eat, like if they ate, a prey animal, they would eat the whole animal that ate some
mm,
vegetables. You know what I mean? So they were getting a lot of vegetables and a lot of nutrients. And they have learned that wolves did eat some fruit and some vegetables in addition. So,
mm.
this is, we're just beginning to understand canine nutrition, that when, well, vets still today do not get any training in canine nutrition. And it's the number one thing that we need to do to keep our dogs healthy.
Definitely. I think it's something that definitely needs more research, but it's great that people like
Mhm.
yourself are able to kind of have done the research and obviously now I've got a brilliant resource for everyone else to refer to, or even just, obviously through this
Yeah,
podcast episode, I'm sure it will enlighten a few people at least. I know
exactly.
I'm a bit more enlightened than I was when we started. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my when I first rescued Sophia, you know, I gave her kibble because that's what they told me at the shelter. Here, take this bag
yeah.
of kibble that, is one of the brands, one of the brands that the shelters, everyone goes home with this brand, let's put it that way. And it's not a
Yeah.
good brand. It's a well-known brand, but it's not a good brand, and so that's what I started with because I didn't know she was my first dog. I
Mm.
got my first dog at age 60, and so I had a lot to learn. I still have a lot to learn, but I've learned a few things along the way.
That's brilliant. I was wondering if you could give us a little bit more insight. Obviously, you don't have to give away the full book, but like what kind of content does the book hold for any of those interested in possibly buying it?
You talking about the Wholesome Canine Cuisine or my book, The Human Animal Connection?
Oh, the Canine Cuisine one.
Yeah. So the canine cuisine has just lots of information. So it has 111 recipes for one thing, and it
Nice.
has like explanation of what vitamins and nutrients dogs need. Talks a lot about getting the gut biome in balance. A lot of the digestive issues that dogs are having, skin issues, are really about gut issues. So understanding about getting the gut back in balance often will result in either eradication of other symptoms or better health in general. Because when our gut doesn't have the nutrients that it needs, if they're on commercial dog food products exclusively, their gut is often imbalanced, the gut microbiome. And these are the little critters that live in the gut that keep us healthy, and both for humans and for animals. So in the natural world, they don't have to worry about that because they're eating alive things. They're always eating live things. But in our modern culture, they are suffering from overly processed foods just as we are. So I go through, all of that and explain about the poop details of the colors and texture of poop. I mean,
Wow.
lot of very technical information, but people can just either go right to the recipes or I recommend at least learning the basics. And then from there, you can improvise once you understand kind of the core issues. And I also give a list of the top supplements that I recommend. Obviously, there's 15,000 pet products in the market. I haven't tested them all, but I have found some and working with holistic veterinarians that I've consulted with. I've gotten their lists. And so I have a kind of, so you don't have to start from zero. I mean, if you already know what
Mm,
you like, great. But there are, like, for example, it's really important for dogs to chew on bones. It's really healthy for them
mm.
emotionally, mentally, and physically. But I'm not about to have all these bones laying around the house. And with 3 dogs, I don't want competition. So there's one company that makes a bone meal. It's a powder.
Oh,
And it's
nice.
got all the nutrients that they need in the bones. Of course, it doesn't give them the chewing. Then I have to give them something else for the chewing, but
Of course,
not something
yeah.
that's going to be biodegradable in the house. I mean, we have to make it work for us too, or we'll quit. We won't continue with it. So there are
Of
things like
course.
that I give my list of my top resources. I have lots of probiotics that I recommend. I have one company that makes the best, highest quality broccoli powder ever. I mean, it's like human grade. You can use it too. And it's from the broccoli. I forgot, I think it's the broccoli uh, when it's not fully sprouted yet. It's the most healthy part. And that's all in powder form. So if I don't feel like making broccoli that day, I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of that broccoli powder in. So, things like that. That company's called Cornucopia. And it was started in the 50s by a veterinarian who realized that something was not right. And he started experimenting with giving dogs homemade food. So 50 years he's been perfecting this recipe. So
Wow,
yeah.
that sounds amazing. Do you
Yeah.
have any other kind of last minute tips then before we wrap up the episode?
Well, I would say if you consider the possibility that animals have opinions, even if you don't know what they are, even if you feel like, how could I possibly know what he or she is thinking? Just taking the position that they do will make you pay more attention to the subtle signaling through behaviors. So I have a saying that all dogs are good dogs, but not all behavior is good behavior. But all behavior, it comes from an emotional issue. So if you can understand the emotion, then you can get to the bottom of behavior. You don't have to say bad dog. You can understand, okay, well, he's scared right now. That's why he's acting crazy.
Mm,
So to help people understand that dogs have emotional lives, they have emotional needs, and to just recognize that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to fulfill it 100%, 100% of the time. But even if you fulfill it occasionally, you're going to have a deeper bond, a deeper connection. And that relationship is going to be more profound because you're communicating at a deeper level.
yeah, that sounds absolutely amazing. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Yeah, it was great to be with you.